So, distinguished guests and colleagues and friends, let me take this opportunity to welcome you to this vital session, Investing in Soil Health to Feed a Continent. It's an honor to be here with you today to discuss a subject that is of fundamental to the future of agriculture, food security and economic resilience in Africa, the health of our soils. So the key to sustainable agriculture and food security lies in the good health of our soil. However, Africa has been caught in a vicious cycle of soil health decline, land degradation, poor yield, and loss of ecosystem services. This cycle has led to poverty and the depletion of essential resources, severely impacting millions of smallholder farmers and communities across the African continent. To break this cycle and address these interconnected challenges, we must invest in soil. That's why, in my own case, in my own institute, on June 26th of this year, we took a significant step forward with the establishment of a regional hub for fertilizer and soil health at IITA under the auspices of ECOWAS for West Africa and the Sahel. This hub aims to address these pressing issues by providing strategic guidance, disseminating knowledge, and developing local capacities. The hub efforts are closely aligned with the regional action plan and the priorities we discussed during the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit in Nairobi in May of this year. It serves as a platform for bringing together policymakers, researchers, and the private sector and civil society to ensure that we are moving in the right direction toward restoring our soil, increasing ag productivity, and enhancing resilience to climate change. Today's discussion is an opportunity to build on this momentum. We will explore innovative solutions from sustainable land management practices to new financing models that can help us to rejuvenate Africa's soil. Together, we can transform our agriculture, we can create jobs, we can drive inclusive growth, and we can secure the future of our continent. Let us seize the opportunity to think boldly and act decisively. Healthy soils are not just the foundation of our farms, they are the foundation of our prosperity. So my name is Simeon Ewi, and I'm the DG of IITA, I was introduced earlier, and I'm also the Regional Director of CGIAR for Africa. I want to thank you all, and I look forward to engaging on a productive discussion with this panel. We have two panels. After this one, there will be another sequence. We're going to discuss the same topic. Now, according to my agenda, we were to have opening remarks from the minister. I don't know if he's around. They were going to check. Anytime when the minister is around, we will probably give him the opportunity to give his remark. But while waiting for him to come, I want to begin the panel discussions by asking very simple questions. The minister is here. No? Is he? No, he's not here.
The representative.
Oh, okay. The representative of the minister. Please, go ahead. I'm so sorry. Okay. Yeah. What did you use that one? Yeah. Bring it down. Exactly. start speaking?
Yeah. Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Telesphore Ndabamenye, the Director General of Rwanda Agriculture and Animal Resource Development Board. I'm just delivering the welcome remarks on behalf of the Minister of Agriculture and Animal Resources. Dear scientists, or protocol observed, let me highlight that Africa agriculture transformation is a key, of course, to ensure food security and eradicate malnutrition. And this is a pillar for the African Union Agenda 2063.
I have it here.
But when we look at our statistics, we found out that more of land we have in Africa is not really cultivated and utilized, and we still face so many challenges about soil nutrient depletion. At the same time, issues of soil erosion in most of the countries. So when we look at the numbers, we found out that about 600 kilogram per hectare of nitrogen is getting lost. If we go to the phosphorus, we found out that 75 of kilogram per hectare of phosphorus is lost, and the other bigger number of nutrients. So we still have the big gap between the potential productivity and the current productivity we have, where we register around 50% of the gap. So what is the implication? The implication is that as the population in sub-Saharan Africa is increasing, we shall have challenges to feed a doubled population of our continent by 2050. So when we look at around in most of sub-Saharan Africa, the fertilizer use is still a challenge. We are far beyond, far from the global average, where we have around 17 kilograms of nutrient per hectare for the cropped land. So this is a big challenge that has to be addressed with partnership and the science. So the consumption of fertilizers is still very low, of course, especially for the smallholder farmers, but even the fertilizer industry is not well developed in terms of the value chain development. So we really need the right investment in fertilizer and other types of amendment to replenish our soils that we have. So when we look at the use, we think about the supply chain. So the agro-dealership and the other entrepreneurship to trigger the need of the fertilizers and the inputs for our farmers are still having so many challenges. So I think that when we combine all those issues, we need to set up a real investment. Some countries have been starting the public and the partnership models to trigger the cost-effective and the fertilizer procurement and the distribution system, and the most importantly, the integrated soil fertility and extension services. So when we look at it generally, we believe that not only soil health, but we have to talk about One Health, because we will be integrating so many areas, including the health of human, domestic, animals, plants, and mostly other ecosystems. So when we give some examples for Rwanda, we have been thinking on how we can protect our soils, because we can't feed our soils before we protect them. So we have been developing so many projects on land terracing, and especially in the highlands where we have problems of soil erosion. We have started already development of site-specific recommendations to trigger the investment of fertilizer blending. So we still believe that coordinated effort is needed to succeed all of those interventions. And then we wanted to see how to integrate the soil biology, the chemistry, and the physics of a soil that really need an integrated research toward the food system approach. So thank you very much once again, and welcome for this discussion to feed our soils, to be able to feed the continent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DG. I mean, you have really set the stage for the panel discussion. So without further delay, I would like to follow up and ask my first question to Ms. Anne Wogan, who is the Deputy Assistant Administrator, Bureau for Resilience, Environment, and Food Security at USAID. Ms. Wogan, how can integrated approaches, such as those promoted by the Vision for Adapted Crops and Soil, VACS, enhance food production while addressing climate change and biodiversity loss? And for each panelist, because of we have a limited time, I really would like to ask you to talk within 3-4 minutes, if you can.
No, thanks so much, and I'll try to be quick. And I might talk a bit more broadly about U.S. government's Feed the Future efforts, and my colleague Anna from the Department of State can dig into Vision for Adapted Crops and Soils, but I think we work hand in hand because we are prioritizing across the U.S. government and through our Feed the Future global strategy, really looking at how we can be integrated and support climate-smart practices. We've actually, recognizing how important it is to have climate-smart practices, we've set a target for all of our Feed the Future programming, so that's over $1 billion a year, that all of our programming has to think about and start reporting on how many hectares of land is under climate-improved practices, more adaptive technologies, and more climate risk management, because we know the impact that climate change is having on our soils, or water, and our ability of our farmers and pastoralists to be able to produce enough food. So we're leaning in very heavily in this space. I think I'd want to talk quickly about policy, and then secondly, maybe a specific example. But we were extremely excited about the the Soil Summit and the Fertilizer and Soil Summit, and the need to focus on looking at soils. And as donors, to try to support this African-led effort, 14 donors came together to sort of sign a donor declaration that says, here's how we can support these important efforts, and looking at everything from and then how to implement the Nairobi Declaration, because we can't just have a conference and walk away. We need to really think about what we can do to implement what we've all committed to. So as donors, we really want to make sure that we're improving the environment for investment policies, committing to improving access to affordable organic and inorganic fertilizers, and other important steps like that. So from the donor perspective, we're eager to support governments setting up the right policy environment and implementing their national plans that came out of the Soil and Fertilizer Summit. And then in terms of integrated practices and examples, everyone here knows the El Nino impact that we've seen in sub-Saharan Africa, and USAID has been responding to really try to help farmers adapt more to these changes. And where we see this has worked the most is when we take an integrated approach and we look at, do farmers have the right climate information services? Do they know when to plant? Do they have the right seeds to be able to plant? Do they have the right agroeconomic practices to make sure we're doing no-till and the right different engagements to protect the soil health? And of course, the financing. And we had a 1 acre colleague here on the previous panel with 1 acre programming in Zambia doing agroforestry. The farmers, smallholder farmers that were engaged in this program that we partnered with 1 Acre Fund and others in the CG and CIMMIT and others, we're able to feed their family for the whole year. And we know in much of Zambia that's sadly not the case because of the drought. But if you do the right practices and get the right information to farmers, we know we can make a difference and empower farmers to be able to feed their families and others. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving us a broad overview of the type of activities that your program USAID is also supporting. I think it's important to look at it from a big picture perspective and so on. Let me go to Dr. Bedra Valawe, who is the Deputy Director General of IITA and leading the Excellence in Agronomy of the CGIAR. My question to you is, what are the key strategies IITA is implementing to improve soil health in Africa, and how do they align with regional and global goals for sustainable agriculture?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Moderator. Now, IITA started working on soil health practices in 1967, which is now quite a long time ago. And a lot of the things I've been hearing today, we have actually worked with those technologies, mostly in West Africa. And while working, we have learned lessons. And I think it's good to go back to some of those lessons learned sometimes. And I think one key lesson learned is that if you deal with interventions that don't generate immediate benefits to farmers, there needs to be alternative incentive schemes. So this session on investing in soil health should probably really consider this seriously. Now, since Abuja 2006, we've been spending a lot of our effort on what we call integrated soil fertility management. It's really walking on two legs. One leg contains a number of principles that we've assembled from the past 40, 50 years of agronomy R&D in Africa. And they are a number of principles, including the appropriate use of fertilizer, the recycling and use of organic inputs, use adapted varieties, good agronomic practices, and address secondary problems like soil acidity. So that's one leg of what we call integrated soil fertility management. The second leg is adapting any of those principles to local conditions. There's a huge, systems in Africa are extremely variable in terms of soils, communities, farmer objectives. So that second leg is as important as the first leg. As the moderator has said, IITA, we are one of the CGIAR centers. There's 10 other CGIAR centers investing in agronomy, including my colleague to the left. So 4 years ago, we've assembled ourselves in what we call the Excellence in Agronomy program, which is really assembling all the agronomy soil health work across the CGIAR. And one development since then is that we were able to operationalize that second leg in terms of developing locally relevant solutions, but at scale, which was not possible 10 years ago because the data, the tools, and the technologies did not exist. So this is really through our AgWise platform and other tools, we are actually now able to address, to deploy those principles in a locally relevant way that not only increase yields, but also ensure that fertilizer and other inputs are used efficiently. One last point, maybe, if you would allow me. As I said, we started with the IITA, we moved to the CGIAR, which assembles 10 centers or 11. But the CGIAR alone also doesn't have all the components to develop, deliver, and scale soil health solutions. So last year, we set up the Coalition of Implementors for Fertilizer and Soil Health with IFDC, the African Plant Nutrition Institute, FARA, and IITA representing the CGIAR. And through that system, we are going to gather the necessary science, innovation, data, evidence to support the implementation of the action plan that my colleague has been referring to, and work with other coalitions and the regional hubs that have been mentioned already. So let me stop here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Banao, for giving us, the perspective of what CGIAR is doing in this area, and particularly focus on IITA. I'm going to follow my list. I'm going to skip you. I'll come back to you. Okay. I'm going to go to Amede, Tilaun Amede, who is the head of Resilience, Climate, and Soil Fertility at AGRA. Tilaun, what are the most effective strategies for mobilizing public and private sector investment to improve soil health and build resilience across Africa? And this in line with the Nairobi Declaration.
This is a very interesting question. You know, we have been struggling to push the soils agenda to scale for at least the last 2-3 decades. And the experience shows that, you know, investment on soil health, on landscapers is best promoted if we link it with commodities, enterprises, major government flagship programs, you know, and those which are really addressing the immediate needs of communities or of governments in terms of food security, at the same time are inputs for critical, you know, crops and value chains. But then the other, I think, major avenue is, you know, linking, you know, farms with landscapes. Soil fertility management in Africa, you know, at a farm level is interlinked to a landscape, a watershed level, and a scale, because there's a lot of interaction between components, be it in water flow, nutrient flow, you know, or carbon flow. So whenever we have large-scale engagements, which particularly engages communities at a scale, the cost is reduced because communities contribute a lot in terms of, for example, free labor, materials, but also the possibility to take it to scale, you know, the multiplication effect is huge. Probably the last point I want to say that I think the time now for soil health improvement is much better than any time before because of the emerging movements in the area of regeneration, agroecology, climate change adaptation. So soil being the major entity, you know, the core, the central point for all of this food security, at the same time addressing carbon sequestration, addressing adaptation. I think this is the best time that we need to capitalize on, and I think it is, particularly in Africa, a work in progress, but this is one thing we have to capitalize on.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amede. I could see Dr. Lee and actually clapping when you were talking. So let me go to you now to follow up. So Dr. Lee, I'm trying to, let's try if I can pronounce your last name. Winowiki? Can you say it?
Winowiki.
Winowiki, okay. All right. Soil and Land Health Global Research Lead at C4ICRAF. How can integrated approaches such as those promoted by Feed the Future enhance food production while addressing climate change and biodiversity loss?
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on this panel. I'm Lee Winowiki. I'm a soil scientist. I lead the global research team on soil and land health, focusing on farmer-centered restoration at C4ICRAF based in Nairobi. And I just want to echo what Tilahun was saying. We have been waiting for this moment where soil health is on the agenda nationally, internationally, locally, for decades. And it is because of all of our hard work, everyone who's here, everyone who's at this conference, who have really been pushing and advocating for recognition of the critical role of healthy soil for multiple ecosystem services. And I want to use my time to remind us that healthy soil is critical because it is the most biodiverse ecosystem that we have. And I don't think we talk enough about these multiple ecosystem services. We talk about healthy soil providing healthy food, not just food, healthy food. Soil is also the third largest carbon sink. So we need to start recognizing how we can improve land management to put more carbon back in the soil. Healthy soil also regulates our water cycle. So Anne was mentioning El Nino. In Kenya, we've been going from drought to floods to floods to drought. And really, the water's running off the soil. So I want to encourage us to think about soil more holistically, and then when we're developing these land management approaches, how can we enhance all of those ecosystem services? I also want to have a call for action for really scaling soil practices that restore ecosystem function, and that is going to require the following actions. One, we desperately need to fill some of these key knowledge gaps around how agricultural management practices are influencing the soil ecosystem. This is going to require innovative monitoring, so this is my specialty. At C4ECRAF, we combine robust, systematic monitoring in the field with citizen science, with artificial intelligence, and remote sensing to really be able to track soil health at the scale that farmers, policymakers need it. These data and evidence can then be transformed to really inform policy. And thank you for mentioning policy. And I want us to encourage that we integrate soil health in ag policy, but in restoration targets, in NDCs, the nationally determined contributions, really thinking how we can broaden the scope of soil health to integrate into multiple policies. Through the UN Food Systems Summit, we formed the Coalition of Action for Soil Health, 180 members and growing, and we have really been working to see how soil is a unifier, bringing together sometimes not like-minded people, but really all with the same goal to restore soil health. So I want us to think about how we can use soil health as a unifier to galvanize this action. This is our time. We cannot lose the momentum. We must work together from the soil up.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. You raise important questions and relevant for this panel. So this is very good. Let me go to Ms. Anna Nelson, who is the Deputy Special Envoy for Global Food Security at the U.S. Department of State.
Thank you so much.
The question for you is, how can international partnerships and donor strategies be better aligned to support Africa's soil health and food security objectives?
Thanks so much for the question. And first, to our esteemed moderator, I appreciate you saying so clearly in your opening remarks that we must invest in soil. I think that sums it up very well, and that's what we're here to figure out how to do most effectively. I wanted to follow up first on your question about the vision for adapted crops and soils, which is one of the ways that the U.S. government, as part of its broader efforts under Feed the Future, is trying to go about that and go about supporting the action plan that came out of the African Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit just this past May. So the Vision for Adapted Crops and Soils was launched alongside the African Union and the FAO just recently with the United States government. And it seeks to build resilient food systems through a pretty simple precept, through climate-adapted, diverse, and nutritious crops grown in healthy soils. And at the core of that combination, crops and soils, is the belief that we can't think about one without the other, that we can't build healthy soil without thinking about what we're planting and where we're planting, integrating both land use decision-making and land management, soil management practices. So we're really thrilled that the Vision for Adapted Crops and Soils has become a movement, and I think really reflecting and part of what my colleague mentioned in terms of soil coming sort of onto the global stage. So we're thrilled to count among our partners AGRA and Tilahun in particular. We're so grateful for his leadership. Also FARA and many others across the continent from all different sectors who are coming together to advance these same objectives. I think I'd also echo and thank my colleague for mentioning the importance of sort of unifying our efforts and our approaches by bringing these different themes together and these different actors together who may or may not agree on every single thing. We can do so much more, and then also end up not just with an integrated approach, but integrated solutions that address, not just the food security crises, but also biodiversity, climate adaptation, and mitigation, all together represented so well in the challenge and opportunity of soil. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. Our last panelist, Mr. Simon Sala, Director, Global Soil and Ecosystem Solutions, VARDA. The question for you is as follows. What role does technology play in advancing soil health, and how is VARDA leveraging these tools to create resilient food systems?
Thank you. And I see the clock ticking, so in the interest of time, I'll try to be as brief as I can and focus on a subset of the technologies, which is the digital space. And one thing I'd like to state is that there is a lot of technology and expertise and knowledge which is already available to manage our soil health better. There's no need to reinvent anything or invent new thing, honestly. Even though there are some interesting things going on, especially in the digital space on the sensing side of things, so remote and in-situ sensing, modeling environment to develop and test new AI, machine learning models to be able to translate data and information into meaningful recommendations. VARDA is an organization that was created by IARA, soon to become a foundation, to develop digital public goods, especially to facilitate farm and field data sharing. One thing that we did is called Soil Hive, which is a data platform where we aggregate the fantastic work being done by organizations the likes of IITA, AGRA, ISRIC, national institutes, getting soil data and information from different countries, and we created somehow a gateway where it's very easy to scroll through all these different data banks, define a region of interest, a country, and as a policymaker see where there are gaps, as a researcher to define which properties are of interest for the research and get the data straight to their inbox, and as an agronomist or advisory service provider, just drop a point and say, I want to know what's pH here, in this point, in this farm, according to the existing libraries. Now, the North Star for us would be to mobilize more and more data, particularly from the private sector. And one thing we started to do already in Kenya and Tanzania with the support of ICRA is trying to equip national counterparts to do that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think our time's up, but I want to, before you leave the stage, just going forward from your perspective, just one word about how you think the next step will be. What do you want to see? Just one word, to express, your expectation for moving forward. I want to start from there to come here. Amede?
Yeah, I think for me, the way forward is that we have...
One word.
Yes, one word. So, action of declarations.
Action?
Of the declarations.
Okay. Simone?
Collaboration.
Action, collaboration. Okay.
I have to second action.
Action.
Enthusiasm.
Okay. Enthusiasm.
Realism.
Okay.
Urgency.
Urgency. I think we can write a sentence with that one. I'm going to take... Okay, urgency. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, round of applause for all them. All right. I think I would like to call the sequence 2 panelists. Maybe we take a souvenir photo. Yeah.